Go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A Gemar Chatima Tova. May you all be sealed in the book of life for goodness. I remember back in April when coronavirus was first hitting and we were all quarantined in our homes and the whole world was shut down. There was a doctor who recommended to not only wear a mask outside your home when you go to the stores, but that you should even wear a mask inside your own home as well. This would help you avoid being 450 pounds by the time that quarantine was over. Now, the whole world today is wearing masks, or they're arguing about wearing masks, or if they're really Jewish, as they're wearing this farshkakta shmata on their sheina panim, they're kvetching how the mask is giving them asthma, and diabetes while we're at it, all the problems. But masks are part of the fun of life. We debate it. Even the rabbis have found some legal loopholes with masks. The loopholes go around your ears. Okay, enough corny jokes about the fact that everyone normal is wearing masks. It's not that bad. After all, even though you need to wear a mask to go shopping in Walmart, you need a mask to go to Walmart. The good news is you can still go shopping there in your pajamas. So this is the reality of today. You walk around, 20/20 vision is seeing everyone wearing masks. And on Rosh Hashanah, the sermon we gave pre-Rosh Hashanah was on this topic, how just like the rest of us, God is wearing a mask because God has deliberately created a world in which he is hidden and concealed. And as we discussed last week, the reason for the concealment is in order that we should find him, because there's a greater light that comes after darkness, as was discussed last week. But tonight, I want to discuss another even more life-altering aspect of this pandemic and this impact that it's had on our everyday life, and that is the idea of people being quarantined alone in their homes. Grandmothers unable to see their grandchildren. Bar mitzvahs and birthdays being celebrated virtually over Zoom on the computer screen with no Aunt Selma to come and pinch your cheeks after the bar mitzvah boy's aliyah. Many of you watching have effectively been in your home for the last 6 months with brief excursions out, literally isolated from the rest of your friends, your family that used to be your social circle, all alone. And so I want to share with you tonight that although God is wearing a mask, the good news is that he is not in quarantine. God is right here, found in each act of kindness and in each gathering of souls that come together, in each moment of community and camaraderie. God is here with us. So God is concealed, God is hidden, but God is not in quarantine. God is with us. He is here in our acts of our community. He is here in our strength of community. He is here in our acts of compassion and care and kindness for others. God is found in the 1,000 packages we delivered in the week before Rosh Hashanah. God is in the boxes of food that are distributed to thousands of residents every single Wednesday at the Chabad University. God is in the phone calls that are made to our friends, or the text messages to relatives or to our neighbors, checking in to see how they're doing. God is in all the volunteers that have come to help week after week with our challah picks-me-ups, with coming to the synagogue, helping someone say Kaddish. God is in every donation that is made. He's in every prayer service where this room fills up. God may have been hidden the last few months, but I can tell you from personal first-hand experience that God has not been quarantined. God has actually found many, many opportunities to reveal himself, to be amongst us. Because you know where God is found? God is found in the unity of two people caring for each other. I want to share with you two stories that I heard as a young child that have deeply impacted the way that I live. They have become ingrained in my DNA and helped shape the person I am today. The first story is a short story. It's a story of a great holy Jew called the Yid HaKadosh. When he was a young boy and he was learning how to read Hebrew, his teacher was teaching him how to read, and they were reading. And he came in the Torah. If you look in a prayer book, so when you have, can you see the letters? Hashem, Hashem. You see the two yuds next to each other. When you have two yuds in a prayer book, it's not yud yud. It's actually an abbreviation for God's name that is normally not said, the ineffable name of God. So in the prayer books, it's written yud yud, and that, for those who know how to read Hebrew, it means God's name, Hashem. And so this young boy, just learning how to read Hebrew, he read yud yud, and the teacher said, no, you should know, whenever you see in the prayer books two yuds next to each other, it's a reference to God. Okay. So he begins to read yud yud, Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum, V'chanun, etc. He reads the entire verse until he comes to the end of the verse. And the end of the verse is also two little yuds. So he says God's name. Teacher says that's not God's name. So the boy is confused. Says here you have two dots, two yuds, right next to each other, and you said it's God's name. And here you also have two yuds, but it's not God's name. So the teacher told this young boy a lesson for life. When the two yuds are side by side, when the two yuds, a yud is also a yid, a Jew, when the two yids are side by side, arm in arm, together as brothers, helping each other, that's where God is found. But when one yid is on top of the other, when one Jew is higher and says, I don't have time for you, you're not my level, you're not in my league, I'm taking care of myself, I have my own problems to worry about, I don't have time for you, then that's the end of the verse. That's the end of the Torah reading. That's the end of the divine inspiration. Two yud side by side, that's God. Two Jews helping each other. Two Jews caring for each other. God is right there in between them. When you cut yourself off, when you separate yourself, that's the end of the verse. I want to tell you another story. It's a story that I've heard many times. It's a story that happened on the eve of Yom Kippur in a small little shtetl somewhere in Europe, in Poland. The man's name was Reb Shmuel. He heard about a family that had been arrested by the Paritz. A Paritz was a landowner, a squire, who had almost complete control of the people that lived in his territory, in his land. He was like a king over them. He literally had control over their life. Many, many stories of poor Jews that couldn't afford to pay the rent on the inn or on the barn that they were renting from their Paritz, from their local landlord. And they were put into jail, they were tortured, they were killed because they couldn't pay the rent. And one day, it is the morning before Yom Kippur. Reb Shmuel was the Gabbai Tzedakah. He was the town's collector for this community, for all the community needs. He was in charge of all the communal funds. And of course, in the days before Yom Kippur, it is a time of fundraising, a time of collecting money for the synagogue. And Reb Shmuel had already gone around and all the rounds of all the Jews that were going to donate before Yom Kippur. And that morning, he distributed money for food to everyone should be able to buy food to have their pre-Yom Kippur family meals together. The morning of Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, he finds out that this family, a couple with 6 kids, has been arrested and they are languishing in prison because they don't have the money to pay the rent to the landlord. How being in prison helps you pay the rent is another discussion. He says, I cannot allow this family to remain in prison over Yom Kippur. That would be terrible. Today, I am going to go around and I'm going to collect the 1,000 ruble that I need to redeem this family from prison before the holiday starts. And so Reb Shmuel goes around to all the people that he already visited in the past week, to the same people, knocks on the same doors with a new cause. And of course, in the week before Yom Kippur, people are very generous. And so this one gives a little, this one gives 5 ruble, this one gives 10 ruble, this one gives a half a ruble. And slowly goes around and he squishes and he pushes until he's gone to the entire city. It is now an hour and a half, 2 hours before the holiday is going to begin. The sun's already starting to set. Everyone is home enjoying their meal, their pre-Yom Kippur fast meal with their family, except for this Reb Shmuel, who's still 300 rubles short to save this family. As he's walking by, he doesn't know where to turn. He walks by the bar, the tavern. And inside the tavern, what does he see? A few rich, non-religious Jews. That while the whole town is shut and everyone is busy preparing for Yom Kippur, these non-religious people had gone to the bar to drink as a preparation for Yom Kippur. Normally you think, how could this be? But of course, Reb Shmuel was desperate at this point, and so Reb Shmuel says, I have no choice. I am going to go and ask these people, maybe even they have a little neshama, a little soul, and maybe they will also be inspired to give a little charity before Yom Kippur. He comes in and says, my friends, there's 3 of them sitting at the table. I need you each to give 100 ruble. I'm 300 rubles short to redeem this person, this family from prison. They were about to throw him out, and then one of them had an idea. They were a little drunk. He said, I'll tell you what. If you drink this entire bottle of vodka, this whole big jar, this whole big bottle, I will give you 100 ruble. Now, Reb Shmuel was not a big drinker. He drank Simchas Torah, Purim a little bit, but to drink a whole bottle. On the other hand, you can see the money piled up on the table where they had been playing cards. They were betting. There was money there. They were in a good mood. 100 ruble, bottle of vodka. He had no choice. He makes a blessing and he downs the entire bottle. He's already starting to get a little bit like, he hasn't eaten all day. He's been running around. And he says, that's only 100. I still need 200 more. So the second guy says, this is a good game. I'm in for 100 too. You drink another bottle, I'll give you 100 too. And Shmuel has no choice. He drinks the second bottle as well. The third guy can't be outdone by his 2 friends. Says, okay, I'll also give 100. You drink the third bottle. And so by now, Shmuel, the world is spinning, but he's into it. He drinks the last bottle. He gets his 300 ruble. He can barely walk out in a straight line, but he's on a mission to go straight to the Paritz's palace to give the money to get this family out before the holiday will start. And so as everyone is home in their home eating their meals, he runs to the Paritz's palace. He comes in, says, here's your 1,000 ruble, release the family right now. He waits till they come out of the prison. He makes sure that they're going home. Thinks to himself, what am I going to do? I'm going to go home now. I've been running around all day. I'm filthy. I'm disgusting. I'm tired. I'm going to go home. I'm going to fall asleep. I won't make it to Shul for Kol Nidre. And so he walks to Shul for Kol Nidre. He comes to the Shul, and finally all the stress, and I can relate to all the stress of the day, all the anxiety, all the pressure just finally disappears. He's in Shul. It's almost Kol Nidre. He's released the family. He was successful, but the Shul is still empty. He lies down on the last bench of the Shul, the last row, to wait for everyone else to come for Kol Nidre, and of course, he falls asleep. He wakes up. The entire Shul is now packed. Kol Nidre night, pre-quarantine, pre-corona. The Shul is packed on Kol Nidre. He wakes up, and what does he see? A packed Shul. The Aron Kodesh, the Ark, is open. They're bringing out the Torahs, and in this drunken haze, if you wake up in the drunken haze and you see the Torahs being carried out of the bima, out of the Aron Kodesh to the bima, and you see the whole crowd, what do you think it is? Simchas Torah. And so this man jumps up on the bench and he begins to scream the verse that we say when we take the Torah, before the taking out of the Torahs. Ata hare saladas. He starts to say the verses. Starts to, in Simchas Torah melody. Can you imagine the scandal? Kol Nidre, everyone's in a very solemn, serious mood. They're getting ready to pray the haunting melody of Kol Nidre. And this guy is screaming, Ata hare saladas, the tune of Simchas Torah. They're about to kick him out of Shul so fast. But the Rebbe in the front of the room sees what's going on, says, let him come sit next to me. And they bring this Reb Shmuel, the town collector, they bring him up to the front of the Shul because the Rebbe said, and the Rebbe said, come sit next to me for the service. Later, after the services were over, everyone was very, very curious to know what happened. And the Rebbe said, let me tell you the story. And he explained to them what happened. And he said, you should know that while everyone else was still holding at Yom Kippur, this Reb Shmuel, By his finding the money to save this family from prison in the hours before Yom Kippur, he already accomplished everything that we can accomplish for the next 25 hours of praying and fasting. He's accomplished everything he needs to accomplish with the whole sitting in the sukkah and the shaking of the lulav and the unity of Jews. He truly is holding by the celebration of Simchas Torah. My friends, you want to find God? He's not alone in the Himalayan mountaintop when you're deep in meditation. God is not in some shrine or in an empty synagogue. God is found in the love of brothers. God is found among the care and compassion of those who reach out to others with love. God is found in community and in camaraderie. God is found in the unity between one and his friend. Do you know that there was a recent study that shocked scientists? There's a big discussion. What causes people to become addicted to a drug? What causes people to be addicted to a behavior until they literally can't stop themselves anymore? So, of course, we say it's an addiction, some kind of chemical imbalance, some kind of chemical hook in the drugs that makes you dependable upon these alcohol, whatever, heroin, whatever it is. And yet we all know people that were in the hospital that were given medication to deal with the pain. They took it for a few weeks, and they didn't become addicted. Some people could drink alcohol without any problem, and others become addicted. So there was a Vancouver psychologist. His name was Bruce Alexander. And Bruce Alexander recently decided he wanted to research this and try to figure out why do some people get addicted and some not. The original theory or proof of addiction was established through experiments with rats. And what they did is they would put a rat into a cage with 2 bottles of water. One was regular, pure, clean water, and one was water that had been laced or was infused with heroin. And when the rat was put into the cage alone, it had obviously tasted both bottles of water, the plain water and the heroin water. And without fail, every single rat that was put into this experiment would become obsessed with the drugged water and keep on coming back for more and more and more until the rat would eventually kill itself drinking this water. So Professor Alexander said to himself, there's one problem with this experiment. It was always done with rats in a cage alone. What would happen if we changed the equation? What if this rat wasn't alone, but was in a rat park? It was in a park in a cage full of balls and dolls and toys and 30 rats. A whole family of rats all together enjoying life. And so he created like a Disney World for rats. It was a lush park full of toys for them to play with. A whole group of rats in the same cage and the same 2 bottles. One was plain water, one was drug infused. All the rats would try both bottles. But not one single rat became addicted to the bottle of heroin. Not one of them, not one died. Meaning, when the rats were alone, they became heavier users. But none of the rats that were living in a happy environment became addicted. Professor Alexander then took this test and a step further. He reran the early experiment where the rats were left alone in a cage by themselves with the 2 bottles. And again, as in the earlier experiments, these rats alone became addicted to the drug water. He left them for 57 days. 57 days until they were completely addicted. And then he took them out of their isolation and moved them into this Disney World for rats with all the toys and all the friends and all the energy. And what happened is extraordinary. There was some withdrawal, some twitches, there was some change. But soon enough, these rats stopped their heavy use of the cocaine water, the heroin water, and went back to having a normal life. Even for the rats, the good social life saved them. Someone can go to the hospital and take drugs, but they don't become addicted because then they come home to their family. They come home to a loving support system. They come back to their social connections. But if we can't connect with each other, we can connect with anything else we find. It can be whatever it was, or the syringe, or 100 of addictions. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is human connection. The reason why some people become addicted is because they couldn't become connected. And they connected more powerfully with this drug or this substance than they did with other people. Do you know how you say life in Hebrew? The Hebrew word for life is chayim. But interestingly enough, the word chayim, life, is actually a plural word. Chayim means multiple lives. When we say l'chayim, famous story, Tevye, Fiddler on the Roof, to life, l'chayim, he's actually not correct, because l'chayim actually means to lives, plural. Should have been to lives, l'chayim. That's what it should have been. Notice the word l'chayim has two yuds, because the opposite of addiction is chayim. There is no life without lives. To live, to have chayim, means I'm connected with others. I'm integrated with my friends. I'm connected to my family. I'm part of a community. I'm part of a social fabric. And that is my chayim. That is my life. From the two yuds of the word chayim, side by side. Chayim could be spelled with one yud, but the word chayim is chet, yud, mem. If you look at the word chayim, two yuds, because in order to live, you need to have life together. Let's find you the word chayim. If you can see the word zachrenu lechayim, the two yuds side by side. There is no life without lives. Now, it's true that there are people that have been part of a community that have connected to others and they got burnt. It's true. And there is times that people have been hurt from others. But don't give up. Find someone you can trust. Be the person that you can trust. Care for others. Bond with them. Care for them. Give them what you may have not gotten yourself. Because when you connect to others, that's where God is found. In the last few months, I'm talking personally now, have began to miss our incredible community. Before Corona, we took it for granted. We expected it. It was. Every Shabbos, we sat together at a Kiddush. Every Monday night, we sat around the table, had a class and discussed. Every holiday, we came, hundreds of us. Purim, we were all together. The energy, the joy. This is what a holiday was. This is what our community was. And we just took it for granted. We expected it to last forever. That spirit, that love. And I miss it. I deeply, deeply miss it. The friendship, the feeling, the energy in the room, the schmoozing, the bonding, the connections we created together. And I'm sure that I don't speak only for myself alone. I'm sure I speak for all of us. And today, we need that feeling of connectedness, that feeling of brotherhood, more than ever before. Because isolation is one of the biggest killers. It's the biggest cause of depression. It's the biggest cause of addiction. And God is not found in isolation. In Hebrew, they say a famous saying, Gam zeh ya'avor, which means that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. There will come a day that once again it is safe for all of us to come together. There will come a day that the community that I miss so much will physically be together as one. But it's up to you to ensure that we are financially able to be stable and to be secure, to continue spreading and continue doing for the community without worry, without fear about the loss of income from the loss of events and donations during the last few months. It is because of this void within, this feeling that I miss my community, that Chana and myself have done more in the last few months than we've ever done in our 12 years here. Classes every night of the week. Every week, the entire summer, my wife sat for 3 days baking challahs for our challah pick-me-ups. An interest-free loan society that we started. It's given out over $5,000. It's outstanding now in loans. So many programs, the amount of hours, I can't even count on the phone, just talking to people, texting with people, trying to keep the feeling of connectedness, knowing that that's where God is found. And so many of you that are watching may not be here at Kol Nidre. You may not be here in person for Yizkar. We will be here when things come back to normal. We need you to ensure that we're financially stable. And so I ask you, as I would ask in Shul every year, to support us, to support our stability. You can go to our website, mychabadcenter.org/donate. You can text me, you can call me, you can send me a message, you can post on Facebook that you're supporting us and helping us. We have a lot of plans for the future. If you haven't been in the Shul in the last few weeks, I should say, come. Come tomorrow to get a Yizkar book and a candle, a Yahrzeit candle, and take a look at what we've done in the lobby. We have plans for expansions to make the Shul bigger. I don't know if you can see tell me if we're in the right place. We have all these plans to make the room bigger, careful, and to make our sanctuary as beautiful as can be. But all of that can only happen if we're financially stable with your help. Let me finish with one closing thought. And again, text me, email me, rabbi@mychabadcenter.org, go on our website. Show us that you are connected the way we're connected. And let me finish with this thought. In California, there are giant sequoia trees. One branch of them is the redwood, the California redwoods. My wife was in camp in San Diego, and she got to go to the Sequoia National Park and see these in person. Today by dinner, I was talking to my kids about the redwood trees of California. We're looking at pictures, and they couldn't believe how tall. These trees, they can be 56 feet wide and 350 feet tall. You see pictures, the people at the base of these trees look like little midgets. Trees, 350 feet tall. The oldest trees estimated at 3,500 years old. That's the times of Yaakov and Esau, before Moses was born, before the Jews left Egypt, before, 2,000 years before George Washington, 1,000 years before Alexander the Great. So people were curious, but the botanists were eager to understand the secret behind the redwood tree. How does this tree last for millennia to survive the fires and the hurricanes and the tsunamis and the storms and the winds? How do they last for so long? How do they weather every storm, every tsunami? So you would think that a tree 350 feet tall would have really deep roots that go deep underground. But the surprise is that that's not the case with the sequoias. Their roots are very shallow, sometimes only 5 or 6 feet deep. So you know how a 350-foot tree tall stands from roots that are only 5 feet deep? Because what happens is, what these roots are lacking in depth, they make up in width. The roots of a sequoia tree can extend several hundred feet out. And as they go out from the trunk, they join and they meet into the other roots of the other sequoia trees. And they merge and they become one root. And all the roots of the different sequoia trees become intertwined and become connected to each other. So what happens is that although on the outside it looks like there's different sequoia trees, underground they've all become one solid mass of root. The storms are not attacking one tree. The storms are attacking hundreds of sequoia trees that are all connected under the ground. The storms have no chance. This is the perfect example to explain the secret of Jewish eternity. The question is as old as the pyramids. What has allowed the Jews to survive and thrive despite all the tsunamis, all the anti-Semitism, all the oppression, all the terrible things that have been done to the Jews, all the pogroms and the Holocaust? How do we remain standing after all that we've endured? And the answer is that we are human replicas of the sequoias. Our people, us, me and you, even if on the outside we look different, even if above ground we seem to be separate trees with different political parties and different religious affiliations and different levels of Jewish observance, but underground, my roots and your roots are interwoven one with the other. We are all interconnected. We are all supporting each other. The greatest winds in the world can come and they won't knock us down because underground we're connected, we're one. And we always know that the greatest power of the Jewish people comes from the fact that underground we're fused. Underground we're connected one to the other. And this is not only what ensures our survival, but it makes us thrive and grow to be the tallest, biggest, most beautiful trees in the world. Because the most powerful way to enrich your life is to enrich the life of someone else. Your life becomes more enriched when you help someone. People who think that my life is just mine alone are making a mistake. Individuality is important, but only if it helps me enter into a deeper, more meaningful relationship with somebody else. We have to learn from the sequoias. Life brings about storms. That's a fact of life. On our own, we are vulnerable and frail. Together, we thrive. We grow tall. We grow broad. We grow powerful. And we can survive anything. Because when we're together, God is living amongst us. As the penguins trying to survive the cold winter, they'll tell you, you got to be together. And this is the bottom line. To get to the bottom of me, I need to get to the bottom of you. Because we are all one. So tonight, as we prepare for Yom Kippur, as we prepare to find God, let's strengthen the oneness of our people. Let's strengthen our sense of connectedness and care and concern for each other. Let's come together as friends, as neighbors, as a community. If not in person, then in love. If not in person, then financially. Let's get together. Let's come together as partners, as supporters, as friends, as brothers and sisters, united in prayer, asking God to finally, once and for all, take off his mask and let us see him revealed, living amongst us in our acts of love for each other, with the end of all illness, the end of all sickness, the end of all suffering, a time when God is revealed in the world. Let us say, Amen. May that day come very, very soon. A Gemara Chatima Tova to each and every one of you.